Hey everybody, so I'm going to start doing videos again. This is going to be a video about my weekend at Kecksburg UFO Festival and kind of what happened and some of the messages that were given to me. Now that I have the videos offline, for those of you who don't know and are watching, I was posting them to Instagram, and my long form videos started getting blocked from uploading, so I just pulled them all and they're now on Vimeo and linked off of my website. So Kecksburg is a UFO festival in Pennsylvania, kind of, I think it's southeast of Pittsburgh. It's a bit farther than I usually drive. I was at another show, and I made a deal with myself a year ago. I was done driving 10 hours for a show. I didn't want to do it anymore. It takes too much energy. It's an extra day or two travel just for a show to hopefully break even while doing this work. And I was like, I'm done. 2 hours is my limit. I want to be able to get there and start the show and drive back in the same time frame without extra, 1 or 2 extra hotel nights and all that. So I was at another show and met somebody who had very ET energy, and they asked me to go to Kecksburg. I signed up after the event that I was at, and about a week later, I had a telepathic ping from that being, and they asked me, they were like, "Did you sign up for it?" And I was like, "Well, I did, but I never heard back." They were like, "Okay, hold on a second," and they went offline from telepathy, and a few seconds later, they're like, "Okay, just give it a minute." And within 30 seconds, I got a call from the event coordinator on a Saturday about signing up. And I could tell she was kind of irritated that she had to call me, almost like she didn't want to, and maybe they were ignoring my registration to begin with. And so I signed up, and it was all because an ET got involved, and they wanted me there. Now, I didn't know why they wanted me there. They just wanted me there. So I go to the event. I get there, I drive down, I walk in, and before the event, I should say, I did not want to go. I did not want to be there. I could feel, I just kept feeling like I don't want to be there. It's just not, this isn't, like, I'm so tired. I do a lot of light work in very dark places, and I'm tired of doing it, and I know when it's coming. So I went to the show. As soon as I walked into the building, the energy was dark, heavy, very heavy, and not dark as in like evil or anything, just very heavy, very stagnant, very not full of life. So I knew I was going to be working all weekend, and I had already been told that. And I set up my booth, and as I'm sitting there that first day, there's no air conditioning in the building. It's 90 out, the building's a toaster oven, lots of people. It's just it was a physically difficult room to be in, especially energetically. So I did what I always do. I pulled out my notepad. I'll actually backtrack a little further. So when I'm setting up my booth, I normally have a setup that I do. Everything has an order to it. Everything is purposeful. I walked in and my guys were literally like, just throw everything on the table. We don't care. Just throw it all on the table. Make sure it's on the table. You don't have to make it look nice. You don't have to make it look pretty. Just put it on the table. You're not here to sell books. You're not here to do this. You are here to work, to spread light. And I went, oh, okay. So that's what I did. I threw all my books on the table. Didn't give much to my setup. Didn't bring my sign in. I have a big banner sign. Didn't do any of that stuff that I normally do at like a Comic-Con or a bigger event. And then I just sat in my chair and I activated my shields, activated my light, and started channeling light into the building the way they said. Pulled out my notepad, and I could feel the room. And I've never been called to go to paranormal events, to go to supernatural events for a specific reason. And I was called to do this one. I wanted to do one to give it a try. And when I got there, I could feel I was like, these, no offense to the people there that are enjoying it, but they're not my audience. They're not my crowd. and I'll get to that in a second. So I turn on the light. I'm a gritter, naturally a light gritter. I think they call it grid work in the light working community. I just know it as gridding based on what spirits told me when we started doing it, and I do it just by walking around. They'll literally just send me into a building, be like, pull over, go to the store, and just walk around, spread some light. So I'm doing that, and I'm drawing, and I start drawing some fae that are around, and different beings who are like, oh, what's going on, we see you, type of thing. And then all of a sudden I get a ping, and I see in my head, telepathically, they show me who they are. And I'm like, you're a wolf. I call them wolfmen. They're humanoid wolf beings. And I'm like, you're here. You're physically here. You're somewhere close. I can feel the proximity of this being. And I can feel him outside of the event in the woodline. And he talks to me for a second. He's just like, what are you doing here? Why are you there? And he's questioning me. He's seriously questioning why the hell I'm at this event. He goes, what are you doing there? You're not supposed to be here. Why are you here? What are you doing? Who are you? What's going on? So we talk, and I tell him, and he's just like, okay, we didn't expect you to be here. And I'm like, okay. And they saw how much light I was bringing in and what I was doing, and they cut off, and he's just like surprised to see me. So then I start realizing there's an actual bubble ship, and a bubble ship is a ship that is an energetic bubble. It is physical, though I don't understand how it works. I've seen one in my presence physically when I was in New Mexico, but it's like a physical bubble of energy that is consciously formed or something. I don't know. The way they explained it still kind of goes over my head with some of the technology that they use. But there were 6 of them out there. It was a crew. They called themselves a collective of watchers. A collective of watchers. Yes, that's what Metshep was the captain of the group, and he came through and started talking to me and telling me what they were doing. And basically, they were there to keep an eye on the event. They do not like the event. They do not like most of those events, apparently, which surprised me. And it came through that they don't like them because of the false information, the lack of experience, the way information is presented. This was the first time. I've been doing this for years, drawing them and talking to them and working with them consciously, like actually doing it and knowing I'm doing it, purposefully doing it, not just randomly experiencing it. Excuse me. I've been doing this for years. I do not think I've run into an ET once who was upset. Let me be very clear. I've worked with hundreds of ETs, worked with them in the woods, worked with them in convention scenarios, doing through telepathy. I've worked with them physically, meditation, all astrally. I have worked with hundreds. I have never, other than the more low vibrational ETs, the ones that are, I would call them more malicious beings, I have never met an ET to this day until that event who was basically pissed off, is how he felt. And he came through very strong, very irritated. Like, they kept questioning, why are you there? You shouldn't be there. Like, this isn't your crowd, and explaining to me, and they were very upset about people. Basically, it came down to, let me just read this to you. I have some of their messages that we talked about on my Instagram. Let me see if I can see this. So one of them was, don't falsify information or utilize the experiences of others to take claim for that which is not yours. Your experience is yours. It's time to share your experience and not the experience of others. That was one of the things that they kept talking about, is they were tired of people doing research. They were tired of people doing compilations, coming up with their own conclusions when they have no experience of their own. I actually heard the authors there say, we researched this information, we put it together. I've never seen a UFO. I've never seen a Sasquatch. I've never seen this. I've never experienced that. If you are not experienced, you should not be writing about these subjects. Like, this is not your information, not your perception. You can't understand what people go through when they experience by them telling you the story. And one of the things they said that they were mad about is a lot of the authors doing research are coming up with their own conclusions. They're coming up with their own conclusions as to why something is happening. They're coming up with negative conclusions, invasion-based conclusions, fear-based conclusions, and then they're using the experience to profit. They're not utilizing their own experience. They're utilizing the experiences to profit, to become paranormal celebrities, supernatural celebrities, to build a fan base, to profit and sell their information. They are not doing it for the purpose of understanding the truth of what these ETs want. And let me be clear, they may be doing it to try and understand what is going on in the universe. But their purpose, because they are not experienced, they are not communicating, they are not working with these beings, they are not actually coming to the proper conclusions and not actually working towards the truth, which is, in order to know what is going on, you have to talk to them. So as I'm spreading light, I'm just continuously pouring light into this room. And Friday was tough. Friday was so goddamn tough pouring light in. I actually walked in. My angels, I've never seen them. I have 2 angels that work with me closely. I've never seen them walk into a convention with me. They were beside me the whole time. And Friday, they were on guard. They were standing beside me by the entrance of my booth, and one off to the side as we were pouring light in. And they're like, nothing's getting through. We're just pouring light. We're making sure it comes in and clears the area. And I kept working. I kept talking to Metshep. There were 6 of them. There was Winston. He was a vegan. Metshep. I don't think he told me what he was. He was a 2-foot tall insect type of being. Rek was the dog wolf humanoid. Winston, I think I said Winston already, was a vegan. Whirlpool, which if you're familiar with Dr. Zoidberg from Futurama, like Whirlpool, that's not actually his name, but when I was like, what's your name? He was like, so I just wrote down Whirlpool and was like, it was good enough. Winston actually had a name like that too. He called himself Winston because his name was like something I would never be able to pronounce. And then there was another one, there was a Syrian, I can't remember his name, it started with a P, and Cobra, the Sasquatch that was assigned with them. He came through and I was like, what's your name? And he searched my mind and he's like, Cobra, a name to laugh at. So I worked with them all weekend on and off. And one of the things they were just very clear and very adamant, like, these events, if you are working and doing research and telling the stories of others, you need to really understand what's going on and not make your own conclusions. It's one thing to put together a compilation. It's one thing to put together ideas. It's another thing to start labeling them invasion, to start labeling them fear-based ideas and start promoting the fear-based aspects. I actually had my books there, and every time I walked up, this is part of why it's not my audience, and they were surprised that I was there. And it made sense why I've never been guided to go to an event until an ET asked me to go there. And I think it was to spread the light. They asked me to go there. And I did end up meeting some people that were, a few people that were more my level, who really know what's going on. But in the end, I put my books on the table, and people who came up, I'd start talking to them. And I'm right across from the big authors who are doing research compilations, I'm sitting there. Metshep at one point, I have his words here. He's like, listen to their words from afar. Hunters, guns, fear. Fear gives a reaction based on fear. We will act to protect ourselves. If that means we have to take a life, it will be done. Every being has a right to thrive unthreatened. Don't take our kindness for weakness. If someone acts on their own will to cause fear and harm, we will respond with peace. If they try to harm us after, we will respond with peace. If they try to harm us after, we will respond with force. If a collective acts in this way, the same will happen. Your collective has shifted. Most are unaware, unawake, so we respond as best we can from the situation to situation. But there is nothing to fear if you do not react with fear. His whole thing was these people promoting these, and I hate to say I'm trying, like, it's not judgment, it's just what they're telling me and what I see. I listened from afar. I was right across from them. I was at an angle, catty corner to the big authors, and I started listening in on all their conversations. Something I'm very skilled at doing is dropping in, because of between telepathy and audio and focus, I can kind of ping in where I need to. And every time they were talking about Sasquatch, they were like, I never go into the woods without a rifle. And then I've been attacked. I've had stuff thrown at me. One guy had his wildlife cameras, like they were trying to destroy the wildlife cameras. Other people were having negative experiences, and they were never talking about peaceful experiences. They were never talking about sitting by a river with a Sasquatch talking to them, or running into one and just saying hi and waving and going on your day. They weren't talking about those. They were always talking about, one of them actually said, I never go into the woods without a weapon, and they always go in to look for Sasquatch. If you go in with a weapon, what do you expect to get? If I go into your home with a weapon, what's going to happen? You're not going to treat me, you're going to be very suspicious. You're going to be potentially violent to get me away from your home. And these are high vibrational beings, peaceful beings who want to be left alone, who don't want you there killing indiscriminately when it comes to hunting, which, no offense to hunters, but I know a lot of hunters who do not hunt with respect, who just kill everything they see. You've got hunters, trappers, even fishermen they don't like. And it comes down to, that's their home, that's their woodlands, that's their area. If you take weapons in, if you do these things with a fear-based mindset and assume that you're going to go in and see something, but you're going to take a weapon with you, well, of course they're not going to like you, especially if they're in an area where humans are constantly doing that, which is why I'm so adamant. Do not share the locations where you see or meet a Sasquatch or an ET, because people will go there and you will lose their trust. I knew approximately where that bubble ship was at the show, and there were only 2 or 3 people who understood the idea of ETs and came up to me. And it's there for us, you can kind of recognize each other, and you use keywords and ask different questions just to see. It's like, okay, you're like testing the waters of where they're at. And I talk to them like, there's 6 ETs outside. I'm not going to tell anybody where they're at, but they're out there. And the idea is, if I had told anybody, there would have been an army of people, like if they had believed me, running out to see them. And at one point, Matt Shep had even said, he was like, first of all, people want to run and have the experience. The problem is, the ETs want to be here. They want to be at the events. They want to be free to walk around. And Matt Shep was like, if we walked into that event, what would happen? Like, if we walked in, all 6 of us just walked in and were like, hey, bought a lemonade, went up and tried to talk to somebody and said, hey, how are you doing? What would happen? He said, every single one of those people promoting these subjects would run in fear except for you and like 2 or 3 others. But the hundreds that are there would run in fear when they saw us, because they would think we're there to cause harm, or they wouldn't understand it. And the only ones that aren't going to do that are the ones who are awake. So I'm kind of getting off topic, but I going back to my books, I put the books on the table, and I have books on ETs, all my experiences, very clear when I talk to people. These are my experiences. I have books that are 300 to 400 pages long, my personal experiences in the woods, physical experiences, meditative experiences, telepathic experiences, experiences in dreams, all my experiences with ETs over the course of however long. One book is over the course of like a year. One book is over the course of 3 weeks. Some of them are over the course of my lifetime. Personal experience. As soon as I said that to people, they looked at me like I was crazy. And they would go right over to the guys doing compilations and pick up their books. But people would go, wait, your personal experiences, you talk to them, you see the ships, you do all that. It's this weird thing where the people at these events, but just like Matt Shep said, these events are not conducive to the community of bringing peace and love and bringing communication and contact. As soon as I said that, it's like this trigger switched, and they wanted the research. They didn't want to hear from somebody who actually does this. They want to believe, but they don't actually want to believe, which is why I was never drawn to those events. And I was drawn there to spread light, to spread as much light as I could, and that's all I did. And surprisingly, they sent enough. I got enough people coming up that I sold a bunch of artwork, sold very few books, mostly artwork. The event was profitable enough for me that I was happy. It's like, made my expenses, made a little more on it. But the whole time I basically just sat there in my chair, and somebody that I had met had kept coming up to talk to me, a very spiritual, very awakened person. And they could see me. They're like, you're just sitting there spreading light. Like, yeah, basically that's what they told me to do. So at the same time, I'm talking to these ETs all weekend. Saturday was a little bit better. I walked in, it felt a little lighter, it was doing better. They even showed me, Matt Sheb showed me a bird's eye of what they see on their monitors when they're monitoring energy. And the whole area was black. And there were these little pinpricks of light for each of the humans. And then I was like this big, glowing, bright light that did not belong in the middle of nowhere. And a couple others were lit up just almost as much. And he is like, that's why you're not supposed to be here. Like, we didn't expect you, because nobody's truly awake here. They're all just, on the cusp. But let's talk about why they were there. I almost lost it. So as we're talking Saturday, I built trust with them Friday. Saturday, they start talking to me more, and they're telling me what they're going to do. They were scanning people to look for genetics, to look for anomalies, to look for the genetics that they wanted, to see the energy, the vibration of people, how awake they were, how accepting they are, who needs help medically. I think Werple was talking about medical help. They were watching people, scanning them, and putting them into a system. That night, Saturday night, part of the reason I've held off on this message for so long is because of what happened. And they asked, they're like, do not say anything until after the event. Saturday night, they called in a fleet of ships, and they showed me an image Sunday of what happened. They had everybody scanned, a fleet of ships. And when I say a fleet, I mean there might have only been 5 or 6. It was he called it a small fleet, a specialized fleet that came down and started taking people and started upgrading them, upgrading DNA, planting seeds, fixing medical issues, doing all this stuff. He actually showed me one of them taking an entire family of people on the mountain. And what he said is, everybody will remember it as either a flash of light with no memory or a dream. But the idea is, if you experienced something out there, you may have actually experienced an encounter. And they were there for that purpose, to figure out who they needed to deal with next, upgrade them, and help them heal, help them awake, help them ascend. The whole point was to give them the choice as to what life they want to lead. Do they want to ascend into a 5D life or stay in the 3D? You can't actually make the choice if you're not awake and don't understand that this exists, that this world exists, that ETs are here, that you can work with them, that you can talk with them, that everything else that's going on. You can't make the choice if you don't know. Their whole job is to watch people, connect with them, and hopefully wake them up enough that they go, hey, something's up. I don't want to live in this 3D world anymore. I want to live in heaven on earth and move forward. Actually, it reminds me, I had talked to somebody there that was like very adamant. She was like, this is hell. And I'm like, no. And she goes, oh yes. And I couldn't actually talk all the way because they kept repeating, this is hell. And I'm like, no, this is not hell. Heaven is on earth. It is what you make of it. Hell is what you make of it. If you think it's hell, it's going to be hell. If you think it's heaven, it's going to be heaven. And this is the choice that they're trying to give you, is to wake up and make, do you want heaven or do you want hell? So the whole weekend was crazy. Essentially, there were just a lot of ETs out there doing work, ships in the skies, things people weren't even aware of, at a UFO paranormal event where they would have wanted to be aware, but again, like Metshep said, they would have run in fear. Like if had Cobra, the Sasquatch, because I don't have his actual name, had Cobra walked up in, people would have run. And one of the clear messages was start talking your experience. Now, they didn't have anything against researchers other than, because research is good, but the idea is that they're using it for profit. They're using it for localized fame, and they're using it for their own misunderstood concepts. They're not actually portraying the events properly because they're just researching and putting it together and saying, well, this is what I think. You can't, you can talk to these beings. Sasquatches are peaceful. I go into the woods all the time and sit with them. These people, while I was there, I can't tell you how many stories I heard that were negative. Just negative, throwing rocks, attacking us, attacking cameras, chasing them out of the woods. This is, yeah, of course. You come into the woods and disturb my home and take a gun in and all this, I'm coming after you too. So obviously, yes, that's going to happen. These beings are beyond peaceful, though. ETs are beyond peaceful. Abductions are not abductions. They are experiences. They are trying to help us. They are trying to wake you. They are doing intense work. Even the Sasquatch said it. He's like, the only reason he was there was to protect them. That was his only job. He's like, I protect them because they're smaller, they're frail, and they were. Metshep's 2 foot tall. I mean, you could punt him like a football. They're frail. They're more prone to injury and such from a physical standpoint if they were to walk in or somebody found them. And he's like, I'm just here to protect them. But while he was there and nobody was around, he's out in the field watching butterflies, birds, and I was like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm just walking around observing, and he showed me he was in a field, walking the edge of the forest in a field, just watching, watching nature. If they wanted to harm us, they would have harmed us. So, very powerful event, very important messages, and I have a lot more messages coming from them. I'm still in contact with them. They wanted me to stay in contact, especially Winston and Metshep, the captain, who is, I should say, he is a disc captain, but they were in a bubble ship when they were on the ground, whatever the bubble ship is. Like I said, I've seen one. I still don't, I know what they look like. I just don't understand them physically. So keep that in mind when you're talking about things, that if you haven't experienced it, you don't actually know the experience. And if you can't talk to them or aren't talking to them, then you can't actually make an assumption of fear or love or in between or anything. You have to experience it yourself. You have to talk to them yourself. You have to work with them to get their stories and their perspective. And this is a problem with our world to begin with, is people take stories, make assumptions, and don't actually talk to those involved. They don't talk to the others about their perspective. They just they cling to one side or another. And I'll just use a brief talk, controversial one right now. If I say gun control, you're gonna have people on both sides of the aisle immediately snap, both sides of the aisle, and they will not talk to each other. They are pro-gun or anti-gun. But if people actually talk to each other about perception, about their way of life, about why they're pro-gun, about why they're anti-gun, about where's the middle ground, what is the actual truth of the situation, a lot more can get done, rather than spreading fear from both sides. So that's the whole point of these beings. That was the biggest point they had, is that, stop telling people things that are not your own. Start telling your experience and start working to experience them, and they will come. They're there. Like I said, out at Kecksburg, I don't know how many people they contacted that night, but they're out there. They took a bunch of them, and we're continuing to do it through the show, and we're still there Sunday night when I left, and doing the work. And they work the small towns, and they go from town to town apparently and help people wake up slowly by modifying genetics and healing and all that. And if they wanted to harm you, they would have done it already. So the only other thing I'm hearing to say is love and light. So I just pinged him and was like, should I say anything? And he's just like, just love and light. That's what it's all about. So if you have questions, let me know. I'm going to start doing more videos, and I've got to figure out my video queue. Hopefully keep them a little shorter. This was just 3 days of work that I did that I was covering. So there will be more messages from Met, Chef Winston, Whirlpool, all of them on Instagram over time. And as always, if you have questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.